Okay, so typically the modern landfills are double lined, so it doesn't sink through. But there's also sensors in a lot of the landfills that detect leaking, and they have pumps down there to pump it back up if that does occur. Yeah. But typically, the modern landfills have a double walled liner, and they shouldn't leak. But yes, you're next.
I have a question about anaerobic digestion. So if the digesters turn it into methane, and the trash trucks use the methane to drive around, why can't they use it for cars too?
They do. They do, but this particular facility is limited. It has a limited amount of methane it generates. So there are some. I mean, they do have methane-based cars. It's a technology that's available, but for this facility, it's only available to the company that picks it up. Well, actually, there's two companies that collect it and take it there. So there's just not enough methane to have it available on a commercial application at that facility. Yeah, but someday if they build more, then they can do cars with other facilities. Yes.
How much trash does everybody recycle in a year?
Well, it depends on the state. Here in California, we're as a percentage, we're over 50%. I think it's 55%. I don't have the exact tons. It's in the millions of tons, though. But other states don't have the same laws as we do, so they're not doing as good a job. Yes.
What do they do when the trash is all stored in recycling?
So after they sort it, they bale it and then they ship it to the mills for further processing. Paper, like we said in the presentation, gets pulped and get made into new paper, etc. I'll just go down the line. Yeah.
So what happens to electronics?
So the electronics get chopped up and they go over a magnet, so all the metals are pulled out and recycled. And then a lot of times, like the computer houses, the plastic housing around your computer, that's called ABS, and that can get recycled as well. Some of the other components are less recyclable, and they have to go to a toxic waste landfill. Yes. Does that answer your question, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many times can things be recycled?
How many times can things be recycled? Well, that's a good question. Different things have a different recycling rate. For instance, aluminum cans can be recycled indefinitely, but things like paper, paper has fibers in them. Every time you recycle some paper, the fibers get shorter and shorter, and they're less recyclable. So the life cycle of, say, a piece of cardboard is, I think, 5 or 6 times before the fibers get too short. That's why some of the electronics you see come in, the packaging electronics. You ever see it's like what lighter colored cardboard, and it's really, you poke your hand in it, it'll break easily. That's Asian cardboard, and that's been recycled so many times that it's no longer very strong. So yeah, different items, basically to answer your question, different items have a different rate of recycling.
What do you do with the hazardous chemicals in your trash?
Well, a lot of the hazardous chemicals have to be sent to a hazardous materials landfill. Some of them are incinerated. Some of them can be reused or reconstituted. It just depends on the chemical. There is a hazardous waste landfill down in the Central Valley where a lot of it goes here in this area. And then we'll start with you.
What are all the processes with trash that can't be recycled go through before it ends up in the landfill?
What are the processes for trash that can't be recycled? Typically, there's not a lot of applications. Once it goes into the gray can, it goes right to the landfill. But there are things that maybe you guys could work on to alleviate that. For instance, hoses, rubber. Right now, there are limited markets for it, and so maybe there's an application or a market for that. You have to understand that there has to be a economical end market to create it. A lot of things, some things are recyclable, like styrofoam, but they're very expensive to recycle, and there's not a lot of market value at the end. there's nobody that's developing a product made from that that pays for all the processing and transportation. So that's one of the barriers. How long is the process? Well, let's see. We take it to the material recovery facility, and then they process everything in a day or two, and then they get all the material out in containers, sea containers, down to the port of Oakland, probably within a week, and then it takes 2 to 3 weeks to get to China, and then once it's in China, it takes another, I think, a week or two before it reaches the mill and gets processed. So it's several weeks, up to a month or two. Yes.
Is the process safe and environmentally friendly, or is there a byproduct that can ruin the atmosphere and the environment?
The process. So some of the processes are not safe and friendly. For instance, with hazardous waste, there were a lot of places that were doing it very unsafe and very unfriendly. So people are trying to get those people to come into compliance and do it in a safer, friendlier way. And then the second part of your question was, what kind of byproducts are generated? Well, there's hazardous waste that's generated in the environment. There's hazardous chemicals, fumes. A lot of the modern plants for, at least in the United States, have to, the factories that, the milling factories and stuff that create this, have to have certain regulations to prevent that from happening. However, I'm not sure if that's true in other areas of the world. Okay, we'll go back to you. Okay. Which state makes the most trash? That's a very good question, and I don't really know for sure, but it's probably one of the states that have a high population.
Any guesses? Did you learn some fun fact?
Yeah.
What was the fun fact you learned?
That would be a good thing to Google. But yeah, it's probably New York, Texas. It could be California, although we do a pretty good job, so maybe not. Yeah.
No, I think population of California is more than Texas.
Yeah.
It is 40 million.
But I think we have better recycling laws in Texas. They're not very environmentally friendly there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there are a lot of factors, but going by that fun fact, one person produces 1 ton per year.
Per year.
So 40 million will produce 40 million tons.
But not all of it goes to the landfill. So, yes, sir. Biggest challenges in the process. It's the markets. It's not enough processing. A lot of times the recyclables have to be cleaned, or the other companies that process it won't accept it. For instance, when you guys put your tin cans in the recycling, we really don't want much food in it. If you leave a bunch of green beans or other vegetables in a can, that becomes a problem for the people that melt that, because that food can draw things that they don't want in the process, like it's undesirable things, and it gunks up the machinery too. So that's one of the barriers. Yes.
What are the most unusual things you get?
One of the unusual things we get. One time, well, I don't really see all the trash anymore, but from 1994 to 2003, the city had a relationship with the prison. We had our own material recovery facility on the prison grounds, and we used prisoners to sort through the raw trash. We didn't have food cans in, and I was the guy that helped set that up. And one time we found a skinned bear in the trash, and somebody killed a bear and put it in the trash. And one time we found, I don't know, there's a lot of weird things. People can throw anything away. So. Yes.
What type of trash do you handle the most?
What type of trash do you handle the most? Well, paper makes up, I believe, around 40% of the waste stream. Plastics about 10. Food waste is about 15. So I would say paper. I would say paper makes up the biggest part of the waste stream. Yes, sir.
What other thing can we do to protect our environment besides composting and recycling?
Well, you know, that's why we have you guys, the next generation. You know, there's some new technologies that I mentioned out. There's other forms of, there's aerobic digestion, which uses, anaerobic digestion, by the way, is an absence of oxygen, whereas aerobic means to breathe or to add oxygen. So
you can
there's
create
that.
you can create less trash, right?
Yeah.
Stop using paper and
Yeah, remember, think of the pyramid. You know, the top of the pyramid is reducing waste at the source, reusing, and so you're not generating so
Yeah.
much to begin with.
Is this process the best way to recycle, or is there a better way that they usually do it?
Well, Northern Europe is more advanced than we are in terms of anaerobic digestion. They have recycling rates of 80 to 90% in Germany and the Scandinavian countries. And so, you know, their manufacturers are, the manufacturing of all these products are not producing a lot of things that are difficult to recycle, like styrofoam. And so it takes a very holistic approach for the manufacturers and the recyclers and everybody to come together and see what works best as a in a holistic fashion, you know, in terms of maintaining sustainability. So, any more questions?
Why do you have to like separate the plant, like the plants, like the food waste from the other waste?
Well, there's different there's different factories, different processors that do different things. So they have different equipment that only can do one type of material. You know, a paper mill can't do organic waste. It doesn't have the right equipment set up. You have to have very specific equipment set up for that particular type of material. You know, if you can come up with something that's can do multi things, then that's a good thing. One of the other barriers is recycling, and I talked to one of your parents about this. Is you guys know what a hybrid is? A hybrid is a combination of things. So if you have some sort of toy that is a combination of metal and plastics, that makes it more difficult to recycle because the facilities that they get sent to, you know, it's either a plastic facility or a metal facility, and so they prefer that it be one or the other and not a hybrid. So if you can figure out a way that recycles hybrid material, then that would be achieving something big. Yep.
I think I know a way.
Yeah.
You could like melt it, and plastic and metal have different melting points. So the plastic will melt first, turn into a liquid form, and then you can take the liquid form out and then keep the metal.
Yeah. I think that's how some places do that. They have a screening process, but that would be good.
That releases too much toxins.
Yeah. So,
Okay, you guys have any more?
yes.
So you said that styrofoam